Excuse me, girls. I need to verify something about your tickets. Karen Mitchell's voice carried across LAX Terminal C as she approached two 17-year-old black girls waiting near Gate 42. Maya and Zara Thompson looked up from their phones, confused. "Is there a problem?" Maya asked politely, holding up their first-class boarding passes. Mitchell's eyes narrowed as she examined the tickets. "These seats, how exactly did you purchase them?" Her tone suggested she already doubted their answer. "With our credit cards," Zara replied, her voice remaining calm despite the uncomfortable attention from nearby passengers. "I'm going to need to see some additional verification," Mitchell announced, loud enough for others to hear. "We've had issues with fraudulent bookings lately." The twins exchanged glances. Around them, passengers began to stare and whisper. Have you ever been judged so harshly that strangers assumed your success was impossible? These black stories of resilience prove that real-life stories often contain the most touching stories of triumph. The digital clock above Gate 42 read 6:47 p.m. First-class boarding would begin in 8 minutes. Karen Mitchell, a 15-year veteran of customer service, had seen it all. But something about these two girls made her uncomfortable. Their clothes were too nice. Their posture too confident. Their tickets too expensive. "I'm going to need to see proof of purchase," Mitchell announced, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. She crossed her arms and tapped her foot impatiently. Zara discreetly pulled out her phone, opening Instagram Live. The notification appeared. Zara_Thompson_17 started a live video. 47 viewers joined within seconds. "Here's our confirmation email," Maya said, showing her phone screen, "and our credit card receipts." Mitchell barely glanced at the evidence. These could be fake. Corporate policy requires additional verification for irregular passengers. Irregular how? Maya's voice remained calm, but her sister noticed her hands beginning to tremble slightly. "You know exactly what I mean," Mitchell replied, her voice dripping with condescension. The twins exchanged a look. In their blazer pockets, identical Platinum American Express cards waited. Both were authorized users on an account belonging to R. Thompson. Neither girl reached for them, yet Brad Chen, the gate supervisor, approached after Mitchell's urgent hand signal. He was shorter than both girls, with nervous energy that made him constantly adjust his tie. "What seems to be the problem here?" Chen asked, though his tone suggested he'd already chosen sides. "These girls are claiming they have first-class seats," Mitchell explained. "But obviously, there's been some system error. They probably got upgraded by mistake." A woman nearby whispered to her husband, probably using their parents' cards without permission. The businessman from earlier nodded and muttered something about teaching them a lesson. Zara's phone buzzed. Missed call from Dad, then another from Legal Depth, a third from Board Secretary. She declined each call, keeping the live stream running. The viewer count climbed. 247, 356, 451. Comments flooded the screen. "What's happening, girl? This is so messed up. Call the cops on these racist employees. Probably fake tickets anyway." The digital clock now read 6:52 p.m., 6 minutes until boarding. "Look, girls," Chen said, attempting a paternal tone. "Just take the economy seats. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'm sure your parents will understand." Maya pulled out her wallet. Inside, barely visible, was a first-class lounge wristband from their earlier visit. She also had a business card, but the text was too small for Mitchell to read from her position. "We purchased these seats legally," Zara said, still filming. "We have every right to board." "Rights?" Mitchell laughed. "Honey, rights are for paying customers, and I seriously doubt you paid for these seats yourselves." The crowd around Gate 42 grew larger. Some passengers filmed with their phones. Others looked away uncomfortably. An elderly black woman approached the twins, concern etched on her face. "Excuse me," she said gently. "I could help pay for economy upgrades, if that would solve this situation." Maya smiled gratefully but shook her head. "Thank you, ma'am, but we already have our seats." Mitchell's radio crackled. "Karen, we need to start boarding. What's your status?" "Minor situation," she replied into the radio. "Requesting supervisor assistance." The businessman who'd been watching approached Chen. "Excuse me, but some of us have connecting flights. Can't you just remove them?" "We're working on it, sir," Chen replied apologetically. On Zara's live stream, the viewer count hit 1,247. The comments were becoming increasingly heated. "This is 2025 and this is still happening? These girls are handling this better than I would. Where are their parents? Probably don't even have parents. Someone needs to call the news." The twins' luggage sat nearby, clearly visible. Each suitcase bore a tag reading Priority Diamond Status, a level of airline loyalty that costs thousands of dollars annually to maintain. "I'm calling security," Mitchell announced, reaching for her radio again. "Is that really necessary?" asked Jessica Reyes, a flight attendant who'd been watching from the jet bridge. "They seem like nice girls." "Nice girls don't try to scam their way into first class," Mitchell replied sharply. Maya's phone buzzed again. This time the caller ID read, "Dad, emergency line." She looked at Zara, who nodded slightly. But Maya declined the call. "We can handle this ourselves," she whispered to her sister. The clock read 6:54 p.m., 4 minutes until boarding. Chen had his laptop open, frantically typing. "I don't see any red flags in the system," he admitted quietly to Mitchell. "The tickets appear legitimate." "Appear," Mitchell emphasized. "But these girls couldn't possibly afford first-class seats. Look at them." "We're looking at them," said a voice from behind. Sarah Kim, a local news blogger, had arrived with her camera. "And we're recording everything." The live stream viewers jumped to 1,847. The hashtag #GirlsAtGate42 began trending locally. Mitchell's face reddened. "This is getting out of hand. I'm calling district management." She pulled out her phone and dialed. "Jennifer? It's Karen at Gate 42. I need you to handle a situation. 2 girls are refusing to accept their proper seat assignments. They're claiming they have first-class tickets, but..." "Yes, I'll hold." Maya and Zara stood perfectly still, their training evident. Their father had taught them to remain calm under pressure, to think strategically, to never let emotions override intelligence. But as the minutes ticked by and the crowd grew larger, both girls felt the weight of every stare, every whispered comment, every assumption about who they were and what they deserved. The real test was just beginning. The digital clock read 6:55 p.m., 3 minutes until first-class boarding. Jennifer Walsh appeared on Brad Chen's iPad screen via emergency video call. As district supervisor, she had the authority to resolve passenger disputes. Her expression was stern, her patience clearly limited. "What's the situation, Brad?" Walsh asked, her voice crackling through the tablet speakers. "2 passengers claiming first-class seats," Chen explained, angling the screen toward the twins. "Karen has concerns about ticket authenticity." Walsh studied Maya and Zara through the pixelated video feed. "Have you verified their identification?" "They're minors," Mitchell interjected, leaning into the camera's view. "Probably using stolen cards or fake tickets. I've seen this before." The twins remained silent, their faces composed despite the growing crowd. Zara's livestream had exploded to 12,000 viewers. Comments flooded faster than anyone could read them. "Minors can't purchase first-class tickets without adult authorization," Walsh declared. "Remove them from the boarding area." A murmur rippled through the gathered passengers. Some nodded approvingly. Others looked uncomfortable. The elderly black woman who'd offered to help earlier shook her head sadly. "Ma'am," Maya said, addressing the iPad screen directly. We have proper identification, payment confirmation, and seat assignments. We're requesting to speak with someone who can verify our travel arrangements. Walsh's expression hardened. Young lady, I don't appreciate your attitude. Security will escort you to the main terminal where you can sort this out with customer service. Sarah Kim, the blogger, stepped closer with her camera. For the record, what specific policy allows you to remove passengers with valid tickets? This is a private airline matter, Walsh snapped. Turn off that camera. Public terminal, public right to film, Kim replied steadily. The security officers arrived at 6:56 p.m. 2 men in uniform, hands resting on their radios. The larger officer, whose name tag read Rodriguez, looked uncomfortable with the situation. Ladies, we need you to come with us, Rodriguez said quietly. We can sort this out downstairs. Sort what out? Zara asked, still filming. We haven't done anything wrong. You're disrupting the boarding process. The second officer, Thompson, replied. That's grounds for removal. We're standing quietly with our tickets, Maya observed. Other passengers are creating the disruption. The crowd pressed closer. Phones appeared everywhere, capturing every angle. The hashtag #GirlsAtGate42 began trending nationally, with over 50,000 mentions in the past 10 minutes. A white businessman pushed forward. Officers, these girls have been holding up the entire flight. Some of us have important meetings to attend. Sir, please step back, Rodriguez said firmly. We'll handle this. Jessica Reyes, the flight attendant, appeared at the gate podium. Excuse me, but first-class passengers are supposed to board now. Should I begin the process? Walsh's voice crackled from the iPad. Absolutely not. Clear this situation first. The twins exchanged another meaningful look. In their blazers, their credentials waited. Their father's emergency contact information was programmed into their phones. Their backup plan was ready. But they wanted to see how far this would go. 10 seconds, Zara whispered to Maya, keeping her voice low enough that only her sister could hear. Maya nodded slightly. They both understood. 10 seconds to see if anyone would defend them. 10 seconds to gauge the true character of everyone watching. The crowd waited. The security officers stepped closer. Mitchell smiled triumphantly. Chen fidgeted with his tie. Walsh stared through the screen with cold satisfaction. The elderly black woman stepped forward. Officers, I've been watching this entire situation. These young ladies have been nothing but respectful. They have their tickets, their identification, and they've answered every question asked of them. Ma'am, please don't interfere, Officer Thompson replied. I'm not interfering. I'm witnessing. A young Latina mother with 2 children spoke up. My daughter is watching this live stream. What am I supposed to tell her about justice and fairness? This isn't about justice, Mitchell snapped. This is about proper procedures. What procedures? Asked a black businessman who'd been silent until now. I fly first class every week. I've never been asked to prove I could afford my seat. That's different, Mitchell replied without thinking. How is it different? He pressed. Mitchell's face flushed. She looked around for support but found fewer sympathetic faces than before. The clock read 6:57 p.m. Boarding should have started 2 minutes ago. That's it, Walsh announced from the screen. Officers, remove them from the terminal. If they won't comply with airline policies, they forfeit their right to fly. Rodriguez hesitated. Ma'am, they do have valid tickets. Removing paying passengers without cause could create legal issues. I'll take responsibility, Walsh replied. Remove them now. The security officers moved closer to the twins. Other first-class passengers began boarding around them, creating a surreal scene of business travelers stepping past what was clearly becoming a civil rights incident. Maya felt her sister's hand squeeze hers. They'd given everyone a chance to do the right thing. Now it was time to act. Should we call him? Zared whispered, her voice barely audible above the crowd noise. Maya looked around one final time. She saw the live stream viewer count on her sister's phone, 47,000 people watching. She saw the blogger's camera capturing everything. She saw the disappointed faces of the few passengers who'd spoken up for them. And she saw the smug satisfaction on the faces of the people who'd assumed they didn't belong. "Not yet," Maya replied quietly. "Let's see how far they'll push this." Officer Rodriguez reached for Maya's arm. "Miss, I need you to come with me." "Oh, moment, please," Maya said politely. She opened her blazer. Inside, clipped to her shirt pocket, was a small plastic card. It was too small for most people to read clearly, but Rodriguez was close enough to see the text. M. Thompson, Board Observer, Thompson Holdings. His hand stopped midway to her arm. Zara opened her blazer as well, revealing an identical credential. Z. Thompson, Board Observer, Thompson Holdings. The security officer's eyes widened. He stepped back instinctively. "Thompson Holdings," he repeated, his voice uncertain. Around them, passengers began pulling out their phones, Googling the company name. The live stream comments exploded with research results. Thompson Holdings $12,700,000,000 0 cents aerospace contractor. They built half of LAX Terminal C. CEO Robert Thompson widower. Widower, adopted twin daughters. These girls are the daughters of the guy who owns this place. The crowd's energy shifted dramatically. Mitchell's confident smile faltered. Chen's face went pale. Walsh leaned closer to her screen, squinting at the tiny ID badges. That can't be right," Mitchell stammered. Maya reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out her phone. She scrolled to a contact labeled simply legal and pressed dial. The phone rang once before a professional voice answered. "Thompson Holdings Legal Department, this is Catherine Mitchell speaking." "Catherine, this is Maya Thompson. Authentication code Delta 77 Charlie. We have a discrimination incident at LAX Gate 42. Full documentation package required." "Understood, Ms. Thompson. Are you and your sister safe?" "For now. Live stream is running. Witness count is approximately 50,000 and climbing. I'll notify your father immediately. Legal team is en route." Maya hung up and looked at the stunned faces around her. The 10 seconds were up. Silence spread through Gate 42 like ripples in a pond. The only sounds were the distant hum of air conditioning and the soft ping of notifications from dozens of phones as passengers frantically researched Thompson Holdings. Karen Mitchell's face had drained of all color. Her hands trembled as she stared at the small ID badges clipped to the twins' blazers. "Thompson Holdings," she whispered, as if saying the words aloud might make them disappear. Brad Chen's laptop screen displayed the Google search results he'd pulled up. Thompson Holdings, Melton Aerospace Defense Contractor, annual revenue $12,700,000,000, 0 cents. Primary investor in LAX Terminal C reconstruction project. His mouth opened and closed without sound. Officer Rodriguez stepped further back, his hand moving away from his radio. "Ma'am," he said to Mitchell, "I think we need to reassess this situation." Jennifer Walsh's voice crackled through the iPad speakers. "What's happening? I can't see clearly on this screen." "The girls," Chen stammered. They work for Thompson Holdings." "That's impossible," Walsh replied. "They're children." Maya pulled out her phone again, this time scrolling to a different contact. She held the screen up so the crowd could see the name. Dad. Emergency line. "Would you like me to call him?" she asked, calmly, directing the question to Walsh's pixelated face on the screen. The live stream viewer count had exploded to 98,000. Comments scrolled past too quickly to read, but the trending hashtags were visible. Girls at Gate 42, Thompson twins, LX discrimination, Daddy owns the airport. Sarah Kim, the blogger, pushed closer with her camera. For our viewers just joining, we're witnessing what appears to be a case of discrimination against two young black women who have just revealed they work for Thompson Holdings, the company that built significant portions of this terminal. A businessman in the crowd pulled out his phone and began recording his own video. "I need to document this for my company's diversity training," he muttered. The elderly black woman who'd offered to help earlier approached the twins. "Sweethearts, I'm so sorry you had to go through this, but I'm proud of how you handled yourselves." "Thank you," Zara replied, still filming. "We learn from the best, teacher." Mitchell found her voice. "Look, there's obviously been a misunderstanding. If you girls really do work for that company, then of course you can board." "That company?" Maya repeated. "You mean Thompson Holdings, the aerospace defense contractor that maintains $847 million, 0 cents in annual contracts with this airline?" Chen was frantically typing on his laptop. "Ma'am, I'm seeing the contract details now. Thompson Holdings has a comprehensive vendor agreement that includes—" He stopped reading, his face growing even paler. "What does it include?" Maya asked patiently. "Anti-discrimination clauses," Chen whispered. "Section 12.3 requires non-discriminatory service to all Thompson family members and employees." Walsh's voice came through the speakers. "That's enough. Let them board immediately. This incident is over." "Actually," Zara said, her voice still calm but carrying new authority, "this incident is just beginning." She turned her phone so the live stream could capture Walsh's face on the iPad screen. "Ms. Walsh, you just ordered security to remove 2 paying passengers from the terminal without cause. You did this while 98,000 people watched live and dozens more recorded the interaction." "I was following protocol," Walsh replied defensively. "What protocol allows you to remove passengers based on their appearance?" Maya asked. We have policies about..." "About what?" Zara pressed. "Please be specific." Walsh's silence stretched uncomfortably long. In the background, her office phone could be heard ringing insistently. Mitchell tried to salvage the situation. "Girls, I think we all got off on the wrong foot. Why don't we just get you boarded and forget this whole thing happened?" "Forget?" Maya looked around at the crowd of recording passengers, the blogger's camera, the security officers, the live stream with nearly 100,000 viewers. "I don't think forgetting is an option at this point." A new voice cut through the tension. "Excuse me, is there a problem here?" Everyone turned to see a woman in a pilot's uniform approaching. Captain Rebecca Santos, according to her name tag, looked to be in her early 40s, with the calm confidence of someone who dealt with countless emergencies. "Captain Santos?" Chen said nervously. "We're just resolving a minor boarding issue." Santos looked at the crowd, the cameras, the obvious tension. "This doesn't look minor. What's the delay?" "These passengers were questioning the validity of their first-class tickets," Mitchell explained, her voice shaking slightly. Santos walked over to the twins. "May I see your boarding passes?" Maya and Zara handed over their tickets. Santos examined them carefully, checking the details against her own passenger manifest. "Seats 1A and 1B, she confirmed. "Maya and Zara Thompson. Is there a problem with these seats?" "No problem at all," Chen said quickly. "We were just verifying some details." Santos looked at the twins, then at the crowd, then at the still recording cameras. "I see. And what details needed verification?" The question hung in the air. No one wanted to articulate the obvious truth, that the twins had been profiled based on their race and age. Maya's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and smiled slightly. "Captain Santos, I believe my father is trying to reach you." Santos looked confused. "Your father?" "Robert Thompson," Zara said simply. "He's been waiting to taxi for the past 15 minutes. The captain's expression changed dramatically. Robert Thompson. He's flying with us today? He's flying us, Maya corrected. He's in the pilot's seat of the aircraft behind yours. Santos turned to look out the window. On the tarmac, a sleek corporate jet sat with its engines running. Through the cockpit window, a man in a pilot's uniform was clearly visible, speaking into his headset. "Oh my God," Santos whispered. "That's Robert Thompson. He's been trying to coordinate taxi clearance with the tower for the past 10 minutes. The crowd followed her gaze to the window. The corporate jet was clearly visible, its Thompson Holdings logo gleaming on the fuselage. Chen's laptop chimed with an incoming message. He read it aloud without thinking. Priority passenger coordination request from Thompson Holdings aircraft. Requesting immediate boarding clearance for passengers Maya and Zara Thompson, seats 1A and 1B. The timing was perfect. As if orchestrated by the twins' father, the corporate jet's engines increased in pitch, creating a low rumble that vibrated through the terminal windows. "He's been waiting for us," Maya said quietly. "He doesn't like to be kept waiting." Mitchell looked like she might faint. "I didn't know. Nobody told me." "Told you what?" Zara asked. "That black teenagers can afford first-class tickets? That young people can work for major corporations? That you shouldn't judge passengers based on their appearance?" The live stream had reached 127,000 viewers. The hashtag #GirlsAtGate42 was trending nationwide. Local news stations were picking up the story. And through the window, Robert Thompson's corporate jet continued to wait, its engines humming with barely contained power. The twins hadn't made their phone call yet. Their father didn't know about the discrimination they'd faced. They'd handled the entire situation themselves, using only their intelligence, their composure, and the credentials they'd earned through hard work. But now, as Maya reached for her phone to dial Dad's emergency line, everyone at Gate 42 realized that the real showdown was about to begin. "Should I call him now?" Maya asked, her finger hovering over the contact. The silence was deafening. Maya pressed the contact. The phone connected immediately, and she put it on speaker. "Maya? Sweetheart, what's taking so long? I've been holding position for 12 minutes. Robert Thompson's voice carried clearly through the terminal, warm with concern but edged with the authority of someone accustomed to instant compliance. "Hi, Dad," Maya said calmly. "We're just having a small problem at Gate 42, some confusion about our tickets." "Confusion?" The temperature in his voice dropped several degrees. "What kind of confusion?" Captain Santos stepped forward, recognizing the need for damage control. "Mr. Thompson, this is Captain Santos. I apologize for the delay. We're resolving a minor administrative issue." "Captain Santos," Robert's voice acknowledged. "I've been listening to tower communications. My daughters were supposed to board 15 minutes ago. What's the situation?" The crowd pressed closer, phones recording every word. The live stream viewer count hit 156,000. Jennifer Walsh's face on the iPad screen had gone completely white. "Mr. Thompson," Walsh interjected, "this is Jennifer Walsh, District Supervisor. There was a small misunderstanding about seat verification procedures." "Seat verification?" Robert's voice carried a dangerous quiet. "Captain Santos, are you telling me my daughter's first-class seats required verification?" Santos looked around desperately. "Sir, I wasn't involved in the initial discussion." "Dad," Zara spoke up, "they said our tickets were probably fake. They called security to remove us from the terminal." The silence from the phone stretched long enough for everyone to hear the corporate jet's engines change pitch. Through the window, they could see Robert Thompson moving in the cockpit, his body language clearly agitated. "They called security," he repeated, his voice deadly calm. "On my daughters, for having first-class tickets." "Sir," Officer Rodriguez spoke up, We were just responding to a call. We never actually— Officer, what's your name? Robert interrupted. Rodriguez, sir, Terminal Security. Officer Rodriguez, I want you to know that your professionalism is noted. You'll be hearing from our security coordinator about additional training opportunities. Rodriguez looked confused but nodded. Now, Robert continued, I want to speak with whoever made the decision to call security on my daughters. Mitchell tried to make herself smaller, but Maya pointed directly at her. That would be Karen Mitchell, gate agent, and Jennifer Walsh, district supervisor. Mitchell Walsh, you're both still there? Yes, sir, Mitchell stammered. Yes, Mr. Thompson, Walsh replied from the iPad screen. Excellent. I'm going to share some information with you and with the— He paused. How many people are watching this live stream, Maya? 167,000, Dad. 167,000 witnesses. Perfect. Robert's voice took on the tone of someone delivering a corporate presentation. Thompson Holdings maintains $847 million, 0 cents in annual contracts with this airline. We've held these contracts for 7 years. Section 12.3 of our vendor agreement specifically requires non-discriminatory service to all Thompson family members and employees. He paused to let that sink in. Additionally, Thompson Holdings provided $127 million, 0 cents, in direct funding for the Terminal C renovations completed last year. The gate where you're standing? We paid for it. Chen was frantically typing on his laptop, pulling up contract details. His face grew paler with each screen. Further, Robert continued, our aerospace division provides maintenance services for 34% of this airline's domestic fleet. Our insurance subsidiary underwrites $2,300,000,000 in airline liability coverage. Our logistics division coordinates 12% of your cargo operations. The numbers hit like hammer blows. Each statistic represented millions of dollars, thousands of jobs, and massive leverage. Mr. Thompson, Walsh began, I want to assure you that this was an isolated incident. Isolated? Robert's voice cut through her words. Ms. Walsh, my daughters are 17 years old. They've been flying first class since they were 10. They've never been questioned, never been challenged, never been asked to prove they belonged in their seats. What changed today? The question hung in the air. Everyone knew the answer, but no one wanted to say it aloud. I'll tell you what changed, Robert continued. Today, my daughters flew alone for the first time. Today, they didn't have their white father standing next to them to validate their presence in first class. The crowd stirred uncomfortably. The live stream comments exploded with reactions ranging from outrage to support to denial. Sir, Mitchell tried to interject, I never said anything about race. You didn't have to, Maya spoke up. You said we were irregular passengers. You said our seats weren't for people like us. You assumed we were using stolen credit cards. You called us troublemakers and entitled, all before asking a single question about our actual travel arrangements. Sarah Kim, the blogger, stepped closer with her camera. Mr. Thompson, what do you plan to do about this situation? Ms. Kim, is it? I recognize your voice from your aviation blog. Excellent question. Robert's tone shifted back to business mode. First, I want a written apology from Ms. Walsh and Ms. Mitchell within 24 hours. Not a form letter, not a corporate statement, but personal apologies, acknowledging the specific harm they caused. Of course, Walsh said quickly. Second, I want mandatory bias training for all customer service staff at LAX within 60 days. Real training, not a 1-hour video. I want scenarios, role-playing, and measurable outcomes. That would be expensive? Walsh replied hesitantly. Ms. Walsh, Thompson Holdings spent $847 million, 0 cents, with your airline last year. The training cost is a rounding error. Third, Robert continued, I want a new policy implemented, the Passenger Dignity Protocol. No customer will be questioned about their ability to afford their ticket based on their appearance, age, or any other discriminatory factor. Captain Santos nodded approvingly. That's a reasonable request, sir. Fourth, I want regular audits of passenger treatment, with special attention to how young passengers and passengers of color are treated. The audits will be conducted by an independent third party, and results will be public. The demands were comprehensive, specific, and non-negotiable. And finally, Robert said, his voice softening slightly, I want my daughters to know that their dignity is worth more than any contract, any business relationship, or any amount of money. Maya, Zara, are you ready to come home? Actually, Dad, Maya said, we'd still like to take this flight. We've been looking forward to our trip. Are you sure? We can fly privately. We're sure, Zara confirmed. We paid for these seats. We'd like to use them. Then you'll use them, Robert said firmly. Captain Santos, I assume there won't be any further delays. None whatsoever, sir. We'll begin boarding immediately. Ms. Walsh, Ms. Mitchell, I trust you understand the terms I've outlined. Yes, sir, they replied in unison. Excellent. Maya, Zara, have a wonderful flight. Text me when you land. We will, Dad. Love you. Love you too, girls. And I'm proud of how you handled this situation. The call ended, leaving Gate 42 in stunned silence. The live stream viewer count had reached 203,000. The hashtag Girls at Gate 42 was trending internationally. News organizations were already calling the airline's corporate headquarters. Mitchell looked at the twins with a mixture of fear and grudging respect. Your boarding passes, please. Maya and Zara handed over their tickets with quiet dignity. Welcome to Flight 447, Mitchell said, her voice barely above a whisper. We're honored to have you aboard. The twins walked through the jet bridge, their heads held high. Behind them, the terminal buzzed with conversations about what they'd just witnessed. In the cockpit window of the corporate jet, Robert Thompson raised his hand in a small wave. His daughters waved back through the commercial aircraft's window. The lesson was clear. Respect wasn't earned through wealth or connections. It was demanded through dignity, intelligence, and the courage to stand up for what was right. But the real changes were yet to come. 30 days after the incident at Gate 42, the airline industry was still reeling from the changes that followed. Karen Mitchell sat in a conference room at LAX, completing her 40th hour of bias training. The program, designed by Thomson Holdings Diversity Consultants, was unlike anything she'd experienced. Instead of generic presentations about workplace sensitivity, she was confronting real scenarios, recorded testimonies from passengers who'd been discriminated against, and uncomfortable truths about her own assumptions. Miss Mitchell, the instructor said, can you tell me what you learned from the Gate 42 incident? Mitchell took a deep breath. I learned that I made assumptions based on appearance and age. I assumed that 2 young black women couldn't afford first-class tickets. I assumed their success was somehow illegitimate. And how did those assumptions affect your behavior? I treated them as suspicious instead of as valued customers. I questioned their right to be there. I called security on paying passengers who had done nothing wrong. The instructor nodded. What would you do differently today? I would treat every passenger with respect, regardless of their appearance. I would verify information professionally without making assumptions. I would remember that discrimination hurts real people. Across the country, similar training sessions were taking place. The airline had implemented the Passenger Dignity Protocol at all 847 airports in their network. Customer service representatives were learning to recognize their own biases and to treat every passenger with equal respect. Brad Chen had been transferred to cargo operations, where he was required to complete 80 hours of sensitivity training before returning to passenger services. His laptop now displayed a permanent reminder. Every passenger deserves dignity. Jennifer Walsh had issued a public video apology that was viewed over 2.3 million times. In it, she acknowledged the specific harm caused by her actions and outlined the comprehensive changes being implemented to prevent future incidents. "I failed as a leader," Walsh said directly to the camera. "I allowed discrimination to occur under my supervision. I prioritized corporate convenience over human dignity. I am committed to ensuring this never happens again." The technological solutions were equally impressive. The airline's booking system now included automatic bias ahem prompts that appeared when customer service representatives tried to challenge ticket validity. The system tracked patterns of passenger questioning and flagged potential discrimination. A new mobile app called Dignity Check allowed passengers to rate their treatment in real time. The data was analyzed by artificial intelligence that could identify discriminatory patterns and trigger immediate intervention. Random audio recordings of customer service interactions were reviewed monthly by independent auditors. Representatives who showed bias faced mandatory retraining. Those who consistently treated all passengers with respect received recognition and bonuses. The changes weren't limited to technology and training. The airline's hiring practices were overhauled to prioritize diversity and inclusion. New employees participated in comprehensive bias training before interacting with passengers. Maya and Zara Thompson became youth ambassadors for the airline's inclusion initiatives. They spoke at corporate conferences, sharing their story and helping other companies recognize the importance of treating all customers with dignity. "We didn't want revenge," Maya told a conference of 500 airline executives. "We wanted education. We wanted systemic change that would protect future passengers from experiencing what we experienced." The twins established the Dignity in Travel Scholarship Fund, which provided travel opportunities for underrepresented youth. The program had already funded educational trips for 247 students, many of whom had never flown before. "Travel broadens perspectives," Zara explained to scholarship recipients. "When young people see the world, they realize their potential is limitless." The airline's stock price initially dropped 3% following the viral incident, but recovered within 6 weeks as investors recognized the long-term value of the company's diversity initiatives. Customer satisfaction scores improved by 12% across all demographics. Other airlines began adopting similar protocols voluntarily, recognizing that discrimination was both morally wrong and financially damaging. The Thompson Standard became industry shorthand for respectful passenger treatment. Federal transportation authorities cited the Gate 42 incident in new guidelines for airline customer service. The Department of Transportation announced increased monitoring of passenger discrimination complaints, with significant fines for airlines that failed to address bias in their operations. Maya decided to pursue a law degree specializing in civil rights, inspired by her experience with systemic change. "I learned that the most powerful weapon against discrimination is education," she said. "Laws can force compliance, but education changes hearts." Zara chose to study business ethics and corporate responsibility. "Companies have enormous power to shape society," she reflected. "They can either perpetuate discrimination or actively fight it. I want to help them make the right choice." The twins' father, Robert Thompson, used his corporate influence to push for industry-wide changes. Thompson Holdings began requiring anti-discrimination clauses in all vendor contracts, spreading the accountability to hundreds of partner companies. "My daughters taught me that privilege comes with responsibility," Robert said in a Harvard Business Review interview. "If you have power, you have an obligation to use it for justice." The changes weren't just corporate policy, they were cultural shifts. Flight attendants reported more respectful interactions between passengers. Gate agents described feeling more confident in treating all customers equally, Security officers received training on de-escalation and bias recognition. Customer service representatives who had initially resisted the changes began to see their value. "I realized I was making assumptions I didn't even know I was making," said one agent who completed the bias training. "Now I treat every passenger like they could be the CEO's daughter. Because they might be." The incident's impact extended beyond aviation. Hotels, restaurants, and retail stores began implementing similar dignity protocols. The hashtag #RespectEveryCustomer became a rallying cry for service industry workers committed to equal treatment. Academic institutions incorporated the Gate 42 case study into business ethics and social justice curricula. Students analyzed the incident to understand how bias operates in corporate settings and how systemic change can be achieved. 3 years later, the impact of that Friday evening at Gate 42 continued to reverberate through the travel industry and beyond. Maya Thompson stood before a congressional subcommittee on transportation equity, testifying about the need for federal anti-discrimination standards. At 20, she was already recognized as a leading voice in civil rights advocacy. "The incident at LAX wasn't unique," she told the assembled legislators. "It was simply the most visible example of bias that happens every day in transportation. Our goal isn't to punish, it's to prevent." Zara had founded a consulting firm that helped corporations identify and eliminate discriminatory practices. Her client list included airlines, hotels, and retail chains, all seeking to avoid their own Gate 42 moment. "Companies are realizing that discrimination isn't just morally wrong, it's financially devastating," Zara explained to a Fortune 500 CEO. "In the age of smartphones and social media, every customer interaction can become a viral moment." The numbers told the story of systemic change. Airline discrimination complaints had dropped 34% industry-wide. Customer satisfaction scores among passengers of color had improved by 28%. The Thompson Standard had become the gold standard for customer service equity. The original live stream had been viewed over 15 million times across all platforms. It was studied in business schools, diversity training programs, and civil rights organizations. The hashtag Girls at Gate 42 had evolved into a symbol of quiet resistance against discrimination. Sarah Kim, the blogger who documented the incident, had written a best-selling book about corporate bias and social media accountability. "Maya and Zara showed us that power isn't about volume, it's about strategy," she wrote. "They didn't scream or threaten. They simply revealed the truth and let consequences follow naturally." The Dignity in Travel Scholarship Program had expanded globally, funding educational opportunities for 1,247 young people from underrepresented communities. Recipients reported increased confidence, broader perspectives, and greater career ambitions after their travel experiences. Federal transportation data showed measurable improvements in passenger treatment across all demographic groups. Young passengers, passengers of color, and passengers traveling alone reported feeling more respected and welcomed in airports nationwide. The corporate changes extended far beyond the original airline. Thomson Holdings had leveraged its influence to create a network of companies committed to dignity and respect. The Thomson Network included 156 corporations that had implemented similar anti-discrimination protocols. Robert Thomson reflected on the incident's legacy during his keynote address at the National Diversity Conference. "My daughters faced discrimination with intelligence and grace. They chose education over litigation, systemic change over personal revenge. They showed us that the most powerful response to hate is strategic action guided by love." The original airport employees had also been transformed by the experience. Karen Mitchell had become a diversity trainer, sharing her story of bias and redemption with customer service teams nationwide. Her presentations began with a simple statement: "I was the gate agent at Gate 42. I was wrong. Let me tell you what I learned." The twin story had become part of a larger narrative about social justice in the digital age. Their calm response to discrimination had inspired countless others to document bias, demand accountability, and push for systemic change. But perhaps the most important impact was on young people who saw themselves in Maya and Zara's story. Black stories of triumph like theirs proved that dignity and intelligence could overcome bias. These real-life stories demonstrated that touching stories of justice weren't just possible, they were happening every day. Have you witnessed discrimination that went unchallenged? Share your experiences in the comments below. These life stories create change when we speak up together. Subscribe for more inspiring stories that prove justice doesn't require revenge, just courage, strategy, and the determination to make the world more fair for everyone.